Well, there's no other way to look at this. This is being called Armageddon at the U.S. border. The invasion of the United States has been happening for years. It's unfolding in a way that we've never seen before over the past perhaps 24 to 48 hours. Record number of illegal immigrants coming across the border, staging in El Paso and Eagle Pass. Mass of thousands of migrants waiting to be processed by border security in Eagle Pass. And as reporters on the ground are saying, they've never seen it this overwhelmed. Now we also have railway lines, Union Pacific railway lines, stopping 45% of all rail cars moving to and from Mexico through El Paso and Eagle Pass. Basically, Union Pacific saying there's not enough capacity, there's not enough routes, and to reroute them. And all of this illegal immigration coming across is slowing down international trade. Someone who's, of course, been watching this very closely and has been watching this entire flow, this migrant pattern all the way up from Latin America through Panama into the United States is Michael Yon, investigative journalist, former U.S. Green Beret, one of the great journalists in the world and really a national treasure, and joins us now. Michael, good to see you. You're in El Salvador. I just want to get your take, first of all. You've been watching this pattern flowing, and you're sort of at the tip of the spear there watching this flowing up here. What are you seeing down there, and were you surprised to see the numbers that we saw overnight coming out of Eagle Pass?
Hey, Clayton. Yeah, I'm in El Salvador now. As you know, I'm always downrange down here. I go upstream a lot. A lot of times I'm actually on the tech. I've been all the way across the U.S. border quite a lot, all the way from Boca Chica at SpaceX on the Gulf side, all the way to San Diego. I mean, I'm constantly doing this stuff. But so I got up. It's 3 o'clock in the morning here, but I got up to check and see how Doc Chambers is doing. You know, Pete Chambers. I sent you the video of Doc. He's on the border tonight. He's a retired Green Beret doctor. He was also in the Texas National Guard for some years, and he worked the border. And so he and I have been up and down that border quite a lot, and he's on the border tonight. He's never seen anything like this either. So I just literally woke up to see how he's doing. He sent he's never seen anything like it either. Border Patrol just sent me wait, Doc just sent me a message right now, actually.
Well, while you're getting that message from Doc, you're getting that message from Doc, let me play Doc's latest video. This is in Eagle Pass.
Okay.
And he just sent this video just a short time ago. Let's roll that. Take a look.
Doc Chambers from Eagle Pass, Texas. Today's the 18th of December. We're out here at the point of entry. 5,000 are sitting on the ground right now. It's increasing as we go along. Information that we've received says another 7,000 should be processed through this particular point by morning. Joe and I have been here many times. Last time we were down here, we were in uniform, and now I'm a civilian and in the army of God. So we'll keep telling truths, and you need to get this video to your legislators and tell them, in the state of Texas particularly, this is out of control. Thank you very much.
So he's never seen anything like this, and he's calling on you to send it to your legislators because this is an invasion. Military-age men pouring across the border into the United States. Democrats, of course, are very quick to point out that they're in favor of replacement theory. But if you're, on the conservative side, if you bring it up, then you're somehow a bigot, you're a racist. But of course, Democrats have been calling for this in Texas to turn Texas into a blue state, to, of course, affect them in an election. Here's what Democrats have been saying for years about this replacement, this invasion, being, Americans being replaced by this invasion. Take a look.
It seems harder and harder to ignore that the echoes of replacement theory and other racially motivated views are increasingly coming out into the open.
In a few years, we're going to be a majority brown country. White people will not be the majority in the country anymore.
This will be the first generation ever in American history in which whites will be a minority of the generation at some point.
As of 2007, every year, babies being born in this country, whites now are the minority.
In 2044, everyone is going to be a minority.
As the demographics change, as white people become the minority in the country, which is coming.
Demographics is destiny. Demographics is destiny.
Demographics is destiny, right?
So, Michael, this is happening. What did Doc just send you here? I'm just curious as we're watching this in real time unfolding.
He literally just sent me a message because I messaged to him that I'm going on with you. He said, I can say this because by the time people see it, he'll be out of this position. He said, sitting in a hide site watching train bridge 6 miles north of POE, which is the point of entry at Eagle Pass. No traffic, but watching on thermals for MVT Will capture footage and launch drone, if any. Staying quiet. Don't think I have a good signal for live. One bar. Let me send him a message real quick. Hey
Yeah,
Doc, I'm on with Clayton Morris right now. Please give me anything else, and I'll tell Clayton while we're on.
that's
So
great. So
Doc and I,
he So he's
Go ahead, sir.
right there. I mean, he's right there at the point of entry, watching, as we saw here, thousands of individuals coming across there, and using thermals. I mean, it's Border Patrol. I mean, they're just overwhelmed. I mean, when you're talking to your Border Patrol agents, what are they saying to you?
Oh, one just sent me a message actually 15 minutes ago. 4,500 in custody right now. That's at the Eagle Pass area. He said, I'm looking at apprehensions now. The majority by far are single adult males between 19 and 40 years old. So this is tonight now. It is a mix of nationalities, but the largest number are Venezuelans, followed by Hondurans. But the bottom line is 19 to 40-year-olds, the majority are single adult males, and he says when females are encountered, they are usually part of a family group, which is true. That's what I see when I'm on the border as well. Which again, I'm downrange from the border. That's why I'm upstream. That's why I'm sending information back to Pete and others, saying what I see, so that they have an idea what's coming their way. So I'm basically at the pitcher's mound, and they're at the catcher's mitt.
So President Trump says if he's elected, he's going to put an immediate stop, basically an immediate stop to the border flood, and then do a mass, a mass exodus, a mass deportation. But by the time that happens, if that happens, how many tens of millions more will be coming across the U.S. border? Tens of thousands more, I should say, may be coming across the U.S. border in the meantime. You can't stop this.
No, it'll be millions. It'll be millions for sure. Yeah, because I mean, I'm constantly down here uprange. That's why I'm, in places like Morocco and watching all these different flows, or Colombia, Panama, the Darien Gap in Panama, the routes are being expanded, right? And I mean more than tripled, right? So I mean the for instance, the flows of Chinese. You've talked with Anthony Rubin, muckraker, good friend as well. We've been down to Darien Gap, and we've been all the way across the border as well. And he's seeing so many Chinese come through. For instance, they've got their own ecosystem, right? Then you've got the ecosystem of the Venezuelans, who are the most of the people coming in right now are Venezuelans. But keep in mind, a lot of those Venezuelans actually, believe it or not, are Hezbollah. There are a lot of Hezbollah down in Venezuela, and actually there's a part of Syria where the people actually speak Spanish. A lot of people don't realize that, and the reason why is because more than a century ago, many of the people from that part of the world came to South America and Central America, and then some of them bounced back and they took Spanish with them, right? So there's a lot of interaction. For instance, I'm in El Salvador now, and actually the president is Palestinian, right? Bukele. So I mean, this is more textured than a lot of people might imagine.
So Hezbollah coming into the United States. Yesterday, Governor Greg Abbott gave Texas police the power to arrest illegals. And of course, liberals are freaking out about this. Oh, this is going to be terrible. Like it's going to be mass arrests, and this is this is bigotry. What do you think? How do you think this is going to change things? Texas police now being given the power to arrest illegals in Texas.
Nothing. Because I've been extremely accurate on what's unfolding, mostly because I spend so much time on the border and downrange, right? Abbott is a member of World Economic Forum. That's what you need to know, because we've reached a point, I've done this for so many years, whether it's war or watching the border and that sort of thing, energy issues, nitrogenous fertilizers. You reach a certain point where your instincts are more valuable than details, right? And what I need to know is what his intent is and what his capabilities are. Abbott's intent, he's a member of the World Economic Forum. His intent is clear: to invade the United States and Europe and other places like Japan, right? That's clear. His capabilities include being able to do that. He's doing kayfabe. Kayfabe is that wrestling term where it's a fake fight, right? He constantly does the kayfabe. For instance, I was down at Eagle Pass in Piedras Negras. Eagle Pass is the Texas side of the border where Doc Chambers is at tonight. I've spent, I don't know, more than a month down there. I spent 2 weeks just on the Mexican side, and on Piedras Negras. It was just across the river. At one point, I was down there on the Rio Grande. Doc said there's about 5,000 tonight in Piedras Negras. Border Patrol just said 4,500 are in custody there. So that means more like 10,000. And then there's another 7,000, Doc said, in Piedras Negras across the river. Now, I was in Piedras Negras for I stayed there because the Mexican authorities and the cartels didn't give me hassles like the Border Patrol did, and like the National Guard in Texas. They would give me hassles being on the border. But on the Mexican side, I was just right there with the aliens coming in. Anyway, so Abbott was there. I was there watching my phone, actually, and Abbott was giving some sort of a speech about how they're closing the border. Meanwhile, the aliens were crossing right in front of me through the Rio Grande, right in front of me. I'm watching him speak, and he's just lying. And I'm watching the National Guard, and everybody helped them up the river. I yelled at the National Guard, "Hey, I'm watching your governor. You're supposed to be pushing them back to me." They could hear me across the river. It's not that train that they're talking about closing. The train track was right to my right when I was yelling at them. That's the train track that Doc is watching right now. I followed that train track about an hour down into Mexico, and that's the train actually that we just saw. Anthony Rubin was on, right? Very
From
dangerously,
Muckraker.
the Beast they call it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Phil,
that train. Go ahead, sir. Yeah.
No, I was just saying we were on a little bit of a delay here, you and El Salvador, but it was filled, right? I mean, that train is filled with illegal migrants coming across. Is that the same train?
It is. It is. I mean, it looks like India sometimes. I spent a year in India. Sometimes the trains are just covered with people, and that's the way it is now.
Can I ask you this? So we're talking to you on a day when the Biden administration is putting together a coalition of the willing. Sounds familiar, like the invasion of Iraq. 10 countries, Western nations, sending over 30 warships, 30 ships to the Red Sea to make sure that trade can flow, and looks like probably attacking Yemen and attacking Houthi rebels in Yemen. And so we're concerned about international trade in the Red Sea and the Suez Canal, but here we literally have our own train infrastructure, Union Pacific, telling us that 45% of all the cars can't get through. They're having to slow down agricultural products coming in, food and beverages, automotive, consumer goods, industrial commodities, talking metals, cement. We're talking dry food products, beer, grain, held in Midwest states that are being. So this is all being shut down. We're sending 30 ships to the Middle East, and yet international trade on our southern border is being halted. I mean, do you not see the hypocrisy? I mean, I know you see the hypocrisy here, but I'm just absolutely furious about this.
Actually, I mean, I watch your show all the time, by the way. I was just watching it when we were driving 3 hours yesterday through El Salvador. There was actually good signal, believe it or not. Watch it. You're getting it dead on accurate. And that's what's bothersome, because I'm always downrange, also in Europe and the other parts of the world, watching this. This is not hypocrisy. They are actually trying to destroy the United States. World Economic Forum is crystal clear what they're doing. So what they're doing, I mean, it sounds like hypocrisy from the outside, but when you're watching what they're actually doing, they're trying to crush our economy. They're trying to build back better. Basically, it's a replacement population. And of course, they always say, "Oh, that's conspiracy." It's not conspiracy at all. They say it with their mouths. They write it. They publish it. It's crystal clear what they're doing. I was just on the Armstrong Williams show, and I've told him, I don't know, last week or so as well. We were on it tonight with Kash Patel and Sam Faddis talking about this stuff. I told Armstrong a week or two ago, I said, they're crystal clear what they plan to do. They plan to kill the white people and to use Black Americans and whatnot to kill. They say this, right? And then when we're out of the way, they will then kill the Black people. It's crystal clear. I spent about a year running around China as well, right? And so I'm very dialed into what the Chinese Communist Party is up to. They're co-sanguinated with the World Economic Forum. They're that tight. Eventually, they'll fight each other, of course. I've written 3 books, by the way, on Chinese Communist Party information war. Unfortunately, they're all in Japanese. They're not in English, because I've been watching it over there. I go to their museums. They're never going to let me back. Museums are vital for picking up signal to noise when it comes to information information war. That's why I go to dozens of countries, just going to museums. It's crystal clear what they're planning to do. They say it, it's in their museums. They're coming for a great genocide.
So yeah, to outsiders, it would look like, well, this is hypocrisy. They're just doing this, and how can you not see this? But it's intentional, is what you're saying. It's an intentional replacement.
Oh yes, sir. It's like radiation. I mean, they're hitting us. I mean, when you know what their game plan is, they're quite easy to predict. You know, as soon as Biden was installed, I was there for the inauguration, right? And I flew immediately to El Paso. So I was in Washington at the inauguration. I was like, you know what? They're going to open the border right now. And I published right around that time, they're going to start tearing down the wall, right? Because I mean, if my paradigm is accurate, they would start tearing down the wall. And if your and they haven't physically torn down the wall, but they've torn it down essentially, right? If your paradigm is accurate, by the way, you can skip all the details often about, you don't need to know every tiny detail about, like, this is why I got so good at war, because I would work on my paradigm. And if your paradigm is, let me tell you ways to tell if your paradigm is reasonably accurate. If you're surprised by anything like the sex in the Senate the other day, then your paradigm is, you need to recalculate, like the GPS in your car, you're lost, recalculate route. It's the same with your paradigm. If you feel the emotion of surprise, then you need to rework it and tweak it, or just throw it out. I was not surprised at all. Disgusted, yes, not surprised, because they're doing demoralization, subversion, right? And so I've been saying for several years now, they're gonna start going after national cemeteries. They're gonna defund them. You're gonna see attacks on the gravestones and that sort of thing. They haven't gotten that far yet, but they will. You look at them
they're tearing down
the
statues
now in Arlington.
Yeah, I was gonna say Biden administration is tearing down statues now in the.
That's all in the paradigm. The paradigm is so highly predictive. And I mean, I just, again, I learned how to use these paradigms by reading so much Feinstein and whatnot as a teenager, and just reading so much physics and learning how to, to try to form a view of the universe around me that's actually predictive, right? And what we will see, if my paradigm is correct, I said it on your show before, Panama Canal's obviously got massive problems. I'm about to go back to Panama. That's choking down our trade. That's vital. That's important. And I've been publishing, somehow they're going to close down the Suez, Red Sea, Straits of Hormuz, all these sorts of things. You're going to see, like, Straits of Malacca and all these other choke points are in danger. The nitrogenous fertilizers, earlier this year, I was down in Netherlands and Groningen, where the massive gas field is. That's the biggest gas field in Europe. I was warning in March when I was on Jordan Peterson. Jordan asked me to go over to Netherlands and look at things. So I flew over and I looked at it, and I went on a show and I said, I think they're going to close Groningen. And now they have. That's really important. Groningen is where it's the biggest gas field in Europe. And why would they close Groningen? Not just for energy, but because that's where they get the hydrogen that you combine with nitrogen to make ammonia, to make the nitrogenous fertilizers, which was a system that started in 1914 in BASF Germany at Ludwigshafen. It's called the Haber-Bosch process. That Haber-Bosch process is absolutely vital for creating enough fertilizers to feed the world, right? And they have been bit by bit shutting down all this. I was in BASF last year with Masako Ganaha, the Japanese journalist, and I asked the guy giving us the tour, I said, what happens if Nord Stream gets cut, right? This was before it was cut, because in my paradigm, Nord Stream would probably get cut. I didn't know, but it did, right?
Right.
And it feeds, it's on her audio. I said, what happens if Nord Stream gets cut? And he said something like, in that German way, BASF is dead. Well, it's not dead, but it has reduced the amount of nitrogenous fertilizer. All these additive pressures, the sea closures, the route, the Houthis doing their thing. If my paradigm is accurate, we will end up in a serious war with Iran, and this war will expand. Remember, wars predictably do two things. One is they grow, and they grow unpredictably. The thing that's predictable about wars is they grow and they're unpredictable, and they grow unpredictably. And this one is out of control. It's not in anybody's control anymore. And it's clear that the intent of the war, always watch for their intent. That's why I go to museums and whatnot so much. You can learn a lot from museums if you pick the right museums. The signal to noise, they're going for a genocide.
You've got to pay attention to what Michael is saying. Michael travels the world. He's one of the he's one of the most prolific book readers that I know. You know, my wife and I read a heck of a lot of books, but Michael is traveling the world. He's at the border. He's watching these flows of migrants. He's studying this, and you're constantly sending me books to read, things that you've just read, and it's so vital to make sure that you're constantly reading and learning this, and it's fascinating to see. And then, of course, you know, I'll get you out of here on this, Michael, which is then the German farmers are now revolting. You know, the story of the morning, the German farmers are now revolting. So again, I think it's so important what you just said. Change your paradigm. Then you won't be shocked when you hear this stuff, the Senate sex scandal, millions of people pouring across the southern border. Now we're going to war, presumably with Iran. That's all been laid out, and we knew that this was coming. Michael, what do you see with this tens of thousands of individuals at Eagle Pass? Do you see them shutting it down? Or you see them anyway preventing any more to come across? Or is this going to continue to flow? We're going to continue to daily set new records at the southern border.
New records. That's why I'm downrange. And again, that's why I'm always working on my paradigm more than the details. I think I learned that from Richard Feinstein when I was a kid. You know, I used to, everything I could read from him, I would read. And he would talk about how to develop a way of looking at the world that was predictive. And you should not be surprised, right? And it's very clear. That's why, again, I'm about to head back to Panama. I'm watching the inputs. That's why, again, Pete, Doc Chambers, and everybody that's on the border in Texas now, they're at the catcher's mitt. I'm at the pitcher's mound. I'm telling you, the pitches are coming bigger and bigger and faster. The route in Darien Gap is opening up wider. The routes to Nicaragua are wider, are bigger, more flights coming in. So there's a lot of different inputs, and I'm watching all these capillary flows form into arteries to the United States, not to mention the northern border, and also the giant Chinese embassy in Bahamas. A lot of them are coming from Bahamas, landing on the beaches of Florida. And then we have swift air flights coming in day and night, all like they come from Colombia, they come from Guatemala. I was just up in Guatemala talking with Intel people up there and everybody else under the sun. They fly straight from Guatemala. It's interesting. These Intel guys in Guatemala told me, they said, you know, these big caravans that come up, a lot of Americans look at that and they get distracted by the numbers. But in reality, they do those caravans so they can smuggle large amounts of drugs and other things that they smuggle, because you can't search that many people. So, you can, if they come up one bus at a time, which there might be, 200 buses in a day, but they can search every one of those buses because they've got the group separated off. They can't write in a big way. You got them outnumbered when you're searching. The Army has them outnumbered, or the police. But when they come in 5,000, the mob has the forces outnumbered. Keep in mind, the Texas National Guard and the DPS, Department of Public Safety in Texas, and the rest of the people down there, they are facilitating the invasion, right? I mean, I'm down there a lot. There are a lot of patriots in those organizations, but their leadership is completely captured. We haven't seen a single general or admiral stand up about the border. Not a single one. And I know quite a few of them. Not a single one has stood up. Or on the death jabs, not a single one stood up. They just let it flow. Right. And this likewise in Israel. You see what's happening in Israel. If my paradigm is right, they will do a genocide in Gaza. That's clear. And it could be a nested sort of push gadol genocide. Israel itself could end up genocided, right? Right now, they're doing it to Gaza, but it can easily happen to Israel. Now, a lot of people say that's impossible. The IDF is Superman and blah, 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 which is absolute nonsense. They're not Supermen. In fact, they're not entirely competent, right? We saw they have great weapons, but keep in mind, their logistics train is 10 miles from Gaza. I mean, they're fighting in their own backyard. They can't defend their perimeter. They can't defend the sea routes. They can be cut off. They can be starved out, just like the people they're starving out. That's why I'm saying it can be a pushka doll type thing. You see what's happening on the larger scale is the emotions are being built up across the world about what's happening. and you see, Lebanon could enter. I mean, you could have 100,000 rockets flying into Israel tomorrow, right? According to the IDF, 60,000 Israelis are already internally displaced, right? And it could get very serious. And so what I'm saying is this is a global conflict, and what we're seeing here and these flows is part of it. And the trains and all these little things, they're big on one scale, but on the global scale, big is like Suez, Panama Canal, all these Straits of Malacca, all these other places which could be interdicted, right? And then you'll see global famines, especially when you add up the global the pressures from the reduction of nitrogenous fertilizers. I was just reading an article last night, actually, that Masako Ganaha found in Spanish. And it was talking about how China is sending so much foodstuffs and fertilizers, nitrogenous fertilizers, to El Salvador, right? Because China's making a big go for El Salvador. That's why I'm here. They're building a library down the road from me. It's 8 floors. It's 7 floors above CCP's building, Chinese Communist Party, building a big library. I was just in it. We spent hours in it the other day. We spent 45 minutes in line to get into this library. It's open 24/7. It's an information campaign for CCP to basically schmooze over the El Salvadorians, right? I see this everywhere I go.
It's insane. It's absolutely insane. But if you're tuned in and your paradigm is right, then you'd understand this. Michael Yon, in El Salvador for us, thank you so much for all of this. And I hope that this maybe opens up some people's eyes to what's actually happening here at the U.S. southern border and globally. Michael, great to see you. Thank you so much. And we'll check back with you here as you head into Panama. Okay? We really appreciate it, Michael.
Thank you, sir. I really appreciate coming on. I'm sorry I'm wearing this shirt. I was literally in bed, woke up to check on Doc Chambers, see if he's okay on the border.
No apologies.
Jump on an airplane.
No apologies. This is what real journalism looks like, in the dark of night, covering these stories. So thanks, Michael, as always. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Clayton.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.